Elon Musk's impressive celestial side hustle makes headlines almost every day, whether for yeeting commercial payloads into orbit or spectacularly fluffing Starship landings. Still, there's an aspect to his operation which all too frequently gets overlooked, even by Musk's vast army of international followers. Yes, although the ins and outs of SpaceX launches are obsessively pored over by the faithful, the actual humdrum business of getting rockets to the launchpad isn't dwelt upon nearly enough. So we thought we'd investigate. Join us now as we pull up to the launchpad and initiate a countdown sequence for a look at how SpaceX transports its rockets. Before we get to the exciting, cutting-edge Starship program, let's look at how the company's Falcon 9 rockets have traditionally been shunted around. Falcon 9 is, after all, the workhorse of the entire SpaceX operation, launching a record 26 successful missions in 2020 alone. Indeed, it's probably fair to say Falcon 9's quiet competence single-handedly keeps the company solvent and soothes the jangled nerves of investors who might otherwise be freaked out by footage of Starship's less-than-stellar recent touchdowns. Falcon 9 rockets are manufactured at the company's headquarters in Hawthorne, California. This is some distance, around 2,500 miles since you ask, from where the rockets are usually launched in Florida. These spacecraft make the journey from Hawthorne, after initial assembly, on the beds of colossal 44-wheeled trailers. One of the major considerations for Falcon designers was therefore to ensure that the rocket's girth is narrow enough to make it under highway bridges and other such obstacles it could conceivably encounter en route. Falcon's engines, 9 Merlin engines under the current configuration, are currently transported from Hawthorne to SpaceX's specialist testing facility in McGregor, Texas for testing, and then sent back to Hawthorne for reattachment to the first stage. A 2,800-mile round trip, that's before even setting off for Florida. SpaceX typically subtracts these haulage runs to established firms with aerospace experience, like Bale Brothers or Eazy-E Trucking. To avoid expensive damage to components, the rockets are usually dressed in protective material or fabric. On arrival at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, Falcon 9 is moved onto a special piece of apparatus known as a TE, or transport erector, and hoisted into vertical orientation, ready for final checks and ultimately launch sequence. As mind-blowing as the Falcon 9 process is, SpaceX has pulled it off successfully so many times now that it seems almost pedestrian. What's really interesting is what's going on in Boca Chica, Texas, with the company's new generation of Starship craft. Since May last year, when SpaceX pulled off the not inconsiderable feat of delivering actual human beings into orbit, Elon Musk has decided to dedicate even more of his vast resources and attention to making the Starship project a success. This means an accelerated program of manufacture in order to refine and iterate designs. In short, Elon Musk wants to go to Mars and he isn't hanging around. To this end, his company has set up a new facility in Boca Chica, a little east of the town of Brownsville on the Lone Star State's Gulf Coast. The Boca Chica facility, dubbed a shipyard by some commentators, exists in order to build as many Starship prototypes in as short a time as possible. Doing the bulk of assembly and some manufacture so near the launch site obviously eliminates a load of those tiresome highway miles. And as Elon Musk has offered generous incentives to local people and businesses to move out, he has a great deal more flexibility on the launch schedules than when relying on other people's infrastructure. Not to mention the fact his new generation spacecraft are far too large to fit under highway bridges. As you might expect, the process of getting a Starship ready for launch is still being worked out, but the recent ill-fated SN9 is worth holding up as an example. Starship's individual rocket sections are shunted by truck into one of 2 bays, the mid-bay and newer high bay, where they can be assembled or, to use the current parlance, stacked. The high bay is 81 meters high and is designed to protect the stacking and welding from the sometimes tempestuous climate of Boca Chica. For now, the bay lacks its own internal roof crane or gantry, with cranes situated outside the bay for now doing the heavy lifting, such as installing the nose cone. Smart observers believe this apparent oversight is actually deliberate, as Starship design, and even more so that of the even larger forthcoming Super Heavy, is still iterating and evolving. Only when a consistent design is settled upon will expensive fixed hardware be installed in the high bay. Once the rocket is stacked, a hired crane, known as Tankzilla, performs the not inconsiderable feat of moving the completed Starship out of the high bay and ready for transportation to the launch pad. Tankzilla, or to give it its proper name, the Liebherr 1602, is a lattice-boomed crawler crane used elsewhere in industry to help erect giant wind turbines. It can carry a load of up to 600 tons and zoom along at a sprightly 0.85 miles per hour. Once out of the high bay, the Starship is moved onto a so-called SPMT, or self-propelled modular transporter. Tankzilla is again brought into service at the other end of the journey to lift the completed Starship onto the pad for final checks. In particular, the so-called static fire engine tests that ensure everything is looking good, at the very least from a fundamental plumbing point of view. Then it's just a matter of clearing the area. SpaceX works closely with Cameron County, Texas authorities to give ample notice of road closures and so on, then waiting for good weather. The whole Boca Chica sequence is designed to accelerate the process of trying out prototypes in order to reach what Musk has referred to on Twitter as his hop in and go to Mars goal. Ultimately, the plan is to reuse his rockets. He just needs to work on getting them down in one piece, obviously. What do you think? Can you think of a better way of moving rockets from A to B on the ground? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more seriously moving tech content.